anywhere in the world is a big matter, is a big issue. It's not something you take lightly. And that's why the grounds must be solid. Let's develop it a little further. I said, look at Kenya. Kenya with ethnic configuration and profiling becomes a very risky place to engage in this kind of thing, of impeaching a person. You will start tribal animosity in this country. You can divide the country badly. So, if you must impeach a president or a deputy president, it must be for good reasons.
Okay.
When I look at what these people are saying, I'm not seeing anything.
Corruption allegations, undermining the president, dividing the Kenya into tribal groups, talking about accumulation of wealth, 5.7 billion. Isn't this reason enough?
Look, where? It is just rumors. And you can't impeach a deputy president because of that. Because the impeachment of a deputy president and removal from office thereafter has national implications, including security of the country. You can't allow juvenile MPs to be excited about impeachment for whatever reason. Either they don't have brains, which I suspect most don't have, or they have been compromised, given little money, like they have told us repeatedly that occasionally they are bribed to vote. This is a serious matter that can collapse the country.
But we talk about
it can't be about issues that are really pedestrian. If you talk about corruption, that is a very blanket thing. Why don't we start with each one of them? What do you mean by corruption? Since when did it become an offense in this country to own property? So you cannot take somebody for trial because he has property. Since when did it become an offense to own property in this country?
You talk about these allegations as if they are universal. Then does this mean if you're impeaching Gachagua,
they must be particular and serious enough? Particular and serious enough. Not generalities. You cannot remove a president or a deputy from office on generalities. Look, something about the party contradicting the president, the head of, and they are even saying head of what? Head of the party, whatever it is.
Yes.
That's a party issue. Have they exhausted the party mechanism? In fact, because they are juvenile in everything, they should know that Gachagua being a UDA member, the easier route is to remove him from UDA.
Oh.
And he loses the position. Why didn't they start there? Let them stop being excited. Unless, and something tells me, tunaweza kuwa tunachezwa. Tunachezwa. In game. Inaweza kuwa game. Because if they are serious, then actually they have a problem.
So if you look at these allegations, you mean if it's to impeach Gachagua, impeach both, as some activists are saying, let Gachagua and Ruto go. If this is
but over what? You know, it must be particular. You cannot, you see, National Assembly, Parliament, both the National Assembly and will preside over, Parliament will preside over the impeachment of Gachagua. And one of the accusations is that he has unexplained wealth. The same National Assembly, a short while ago, while vetting nominees for cabinet, let pass with a clean bill of health to assume office people who could not explain how within a span of 1 year they had jumped from 100 million to 300, 400 million.
Yeah.
People were asking, when this guy came, you know, when the president dissolved cabinet, he chose to reappoint some of them. And they also had to go through the same vetting. So a guy who 1.5 years ago, when joining cabinet, said he had 50 million, for example. Upon being reappointed after the dissolution of parliament, of the disbandment of cabinet, 1.5 years later, a guy who had 50 now tells us he has 400. That National Assembly that vetted this guy and said it's okay, how can the same national... The constitution is very clear, and this is how the courts are going to be tested. And this is how the courts can crash this thing, by design or otherwise. The constitution is very clear on discrimination and fairness. Those two, discrimination of any nature discrimination and matters of fairness and natural justice. Parliament can not ignore a person who made 300 without an explanation in a year and pass him on to become a cabinet secretary. And less than 6 months later, the same cabinet is telling us, the same parliament is telling us, Gachagua should go home because he can't explain how he got his billions. First of all, how do they know Gachagua has 5.7 billion? How do they know? The laws of privacy. They are called digital what?
Digital privacy.
Yeah, those things. How did you know what somebody has? When did you apply to court to access his wealth? You have to apply to court. They have to table it in parliament. These are children. We don't have a parliament. These are jokers.
So there's so much.
Look, how did they know he has? And look here. If my son has property, it's not my property by law. Let's put it this way, so that these MPs, and they are supposed to be lawmakers, but they are so useless. Being a Kenyan can be very painful. If you are my son, and as an African man, you know I'm African, yes? Yeah. You know I have many children, you know them, eh?
Yes.
We can't count them, we don't count, but there are many. So let's say now you are one of them. And I give you, I drive a very nice car. Like I saw a friend of mine, Francis, bought a car worth about 40 million, a Lexus 600, and another one, LC 300, the latest V8. Combined, that was about 70 million. Supposing you are my son and I gave you those cars in your name, and then unfortunately, I die. Because everybody will die, isn't it?
Yeah. Without
a will. Do you know your siblings can have no claim to those cars? No, those are already yours. They are in your name. Wakati mali inagawa hiyo huwezi wekwa kwa meza.
Ulishapewa.
You can't. It happened. These MPs. Okay, why do we have illiterate people running this country? The same case applied Mbogwa, who married an old woman, Wamboi Otieno. Yes. When she died, the poor boy was left with nothing. There was a property which somebody tried to go for. I don't know, was it is already in the name of
the son
or somebody, I don't know who, one of them. It cannot be a subject of. How can you be a member of parliament without knowing this simple truth?
But they're using the word proxies.
Where is proxy in law? Where is proxy in law? If Gachagua's children have property, it's their property, it's not Gachagua's.
To talk to me about
unless you begin criminal proceedings, if you have,
yes,
or a ESCC, that's a probe to link the property first to proceeds of corruption. Second, to show audit trade showing the same proceeds, like in the instance of Waititu, went to the daughter or the wife. So you cannot use that as a ground for impeachment before you exhaust the legal mechanism.
Investigation.
If it becomes a ground for impeaching somebody, it must be exhausted legally first.
Okay.
So, but I'm telling you, we have illiterate people in parliament. But you still
said this is a political process.
Yeah.
So how do you balance? Because you're talking about investigation first, but you're also talking about, look, it's political.
Where I am, somewhere I won't mention, there are issues of that nature. But let me now leave where I am.
Yeah.
Let me talk about the country. If you want to remove somebody from office, you must avoid grounds that are questionable. You must avoid grounds of legal issues that will need determination first. That's why if you want to remove, for example, a member of a board, avoid issues of defamation. Because if you defame somebody, then that issue must be determined first. Because if you remove a member of a board from a board on grounds that are clearly defamation, then that is, once he leaves the board, then it stands. So he must clear first the issue of defamation. But it must be defamation in the sense of you as an individual, not as a board member like I've seen elsewhere. Now, talking about Gachagua, if you bring a legal issue, that legal question must be settled first before the impeachment proceeds. So you need to bring political grounds. You see? Political ground
that don't require determination.
Yes, or settle determined legal issues.
Okay.
Settled, determined legal issues. They have been determined. It becomes a ground for impeachment. But so long as it is an issue that requires determination, it cannot form a basis for impeachment.
Talk to me about
Actually, just stick to political issues.
options now.
Yeah.
Kiambu Senator says Gachagua will not resign. You've said Gachagua is not the man we thought he was when he was vying together with the president. He has talked about he has paramilitary training.
And he can get a gun.
He can deal with people. But what are the options on the table now for him? If you say he calls you, asks Manyora, what do you think? Should I resign?
Initially, I thought the best way was to resign. I hadn't looked at the thing. I didn't pay much attention to this. I knew it was a game Ruto was playing with Gachagua. So I didn't pay much attention. But now when it looked like it was serious, I began to go deep into it. Initially, I thought, well, he should resign. Because then that means in the future you can contest. But I thought that's not important. Because let's assume he has been impeached, tried and removed from office. Some of the issues we are raising can be raised post-impeachment, and that would clear him to stand. So I don't think resignation is necessary. Even if he's impeached and removed, he can still prosecute these issues we are raising until it is determined actually he ought not have been impeached. Or at the very least, as the least prayer he will make, that this should not stop him from running for office. And that will work. And there's already precedent. The same senator you are saying
Yes.
is not supposed to have run because he had been successfully been impeached from office.
Yeah.
The second option, which is to stay put and fight, looks to me now to be more viable for him.
Why so?
Why so? Because there are a lot of legal landmines which the impeachment people must navigate around. They are walking in a minefield. Minefield, eh?
Yeah.
There are so many mines, legal mines.
And so if Gachagua has legal minds on his side, he can actually navigate.
Yeah. So it is very difficult to be convinced that they will have it their way. In terms of numbers, they have numbers, but there's also the political issue. The political issue, I've been doing some radio